What if the world's most iconic tech visionary told you that failure was the best thing that ever happened to him? This is not a story about Apple. This is not a story about technology. This is a story about you, because the lessons Steve Jobs shared in this now legendary speech aren't just for graduates. They're for anyone who's ever felt lost, rejected, or afraid that they'll never figure it out. If you've ever doubted yourself, this is your wake-up call. He dropped out of college, slept on floors, returned Coke bottles for food money. But in that chaos, Jobs found something most of us overlook: curiosity. He took classes not for a degree, but for the joy of learning. One of those classes, calligraphy, seemingly useless. But years later, it would define the elegance of the Macintosh. Jobs said it best: you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. We often assume every step must lead to a clear destination. But for Jobs, the detours, dropping out, wandering into random courses, created Apple's identity. The reason your iPhone has beautiful typography and seamless design? That calligraphy class. A dot he couldn't have predicted. How many of us ignore our instincts, the quiet callings, that book we want to read, that idea we want to explore, because it doesn't seem practical? Jobs teaches us: passion first, logic later. Trust the pattern will emerge. At 30, he was fired from the company he built. Imagine that. The world called it humiliation. He called it liberation. In his own words, sometimes life hits you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. Instead of quitting, he started again. He built Next. Then Pixar. Then Apple wanted him back. He said, "The only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did." Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the path to it. Lose everything, and you might finally find yourself. Pixar changed the world of storytelling. Toy Story wasn't just a movie, it was a revolution in animation, and it happened while Steve was not at Apple. That chapter of Exile, that was his refining fire, his desert, the time where he refound his purpose. Most of us fear failure like it's the end, but Jobs embraced it like it was a beginning, and it was. Apple 2.0 became the most valuable company in the world, after its founder came back as someone reborn. Then came the moment that changed everything: his cancer diagnosis. He stared death in the face, and it gave him clarity. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because everything else but fear, pride, ego, falls away in the face of death. You're already naked. There's no reason not to follow your heart. Memento mori. Use your mortality as fuel to live boldly, urgently, authentically. He realized the clock is always ticking, that most people live like they'll never die. That's why they postpone dreams. But Jobs, he moved fast, took risks, said no to 1,000 things. Why? Because the end was never out of sight. He said yes to what mattered: love, simplicity, impact. He didn't let death paralyze him. He let it focus him. One of Jobs' most defining traits wasn't just vision, it was obsession. He was obsessed with simplicity, with clean design, with making technology invisible. He once said, "Simple can be harder than complex. You have to work hard to get your thinking clean to make it simple." He would argue about fonts, angles, even packaging. Why? Because every detail mattered. While others raced to add more, Jobs focused on doing less, better. Simplicity wasn't aesthetic, it was philosophy. It meant removing noise so the signal could shine through. In life, we add more. More apps, more tasks, more distractions. But Jobs teaches us to subtract, to focus, to simplify until only truth remains. We often think innovation is about doing more, building more, saying yes to everything. But Jobs flipped that script. Innovation is saying no to 1,000 things. When he returned to Apple in 1997, the company was bloated. Dozens of products, none of them excellent. He cut it down to 4. Just 4. And rebuilt from there. Focus wasn't optional. It was the foundation. That same lesson applies to your life. If you're chasing 10 goals, you're chasing none. If you're always saying yes, your real dream dies in silence. Jobs teaches us the power of ruthless clarity, the courage to cut, to protect what matters by refusing what doesn't. Success isn't built by doing more. It's built by choosing less, with intention. More than anything, Steve Jobs believed in impact. "We're here to put a dent in the universe," he said. "Otherwise, why even be here?" He wasn't in it for money or fame. He believed that passion, when executed with excellence, could ripple across generations. He built tools that amplified human potential, products that empowered creators, dreamers, and builders. And even today, years after his death, his dent is still expanding. But here's the truth. You don't have to be Steve Jobs to change the world. You just have to find your thing, the problem that breaks your heart, the idea that won't leave you alone, the work you do for free because it sets your soul on fire. Then you show up, again and again, until that quiet idea becomes a revolution. The world doesn't need another Steve Jobs. It needs the first you. If there's one thread running through every chapter of Steve Jobs' life, it's not genius, it's resilience. He was adopted, dropped out, fired, diagnosed with cancer, doubted, criticized. But he always got back up. In a world obsessed with being flawless, Jobs was proof that greatness is not about never falling. It's about always rising. He wasn't the smartest in the room, but he was the most relentless. And that made all the difference. When Apple was on the verge of collapse, he showed up. When no one believed in Pixar, he believed. When cancer returned, he still spoke, still built, still inspired. He didn't wait for ideal conditions. He created in spite of them. That's the secret. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to persist. Even when the odds are stacked. Even when it hurts. Especially then, because greatness isn't born in comfort. It's forged in resistance. And if Steve Jobs could rise from failure, loss, and sickness, so can you. Steve Jobs didn't just build technology, he built belief, not just in machine, but in people, in possibility, in purpose. You don't need to be a genius, or rich, or lucky. You just need to trust that the dots will connect. Stay hungry, stay foolish. This isn't just his story. This is yours. So if you're at rock bottom or just beginning, remember, the next dot is already waiting. You have no idea what you're capable of yet. But the version of you 10 years from now, they're counting on you to keep moving, to keep building, learning, falling, rising. Welcome to Successphere, where the rise begins.